Saints wide receiver Chris Olave is unfortunately being taken to the hospital with another concerning-looking head injury as a result of the hit he sustained on this play after this incomplete pass. In this video, we'll talk about what exactly we saw on the field with the evaluation and what this could mean with the rest of Olave's career. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and the goal in this channel is to teach you more about the medical side of the sports world. So very scary, serious situation here that we saw develop in Carolina between the Saints and the Panthers. And of course, remember, Olave is coming back from a concussion just sustained, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he's had multiple in his career. We'll talk about that in the second half of the video, right? We've seen a lot of extensive conversations around Tua, who I believe has had fewer concussions than Olave, if I'm not wrong here. And we don't see as much of that conversation around wide receivers because it doesn't necessarily look as bad, but I suspect we're going to see a lot of that conversation here with Olave. Now, I'm not a football player. I personally see this play, and I don't think there's anything dirty about it. The Panthers defender here is not leading with his helmet. He hits Olave with his shoulder, but this is the unfortunate part about playing a dangerous sport like football. We see Olave is essentially defenseless here after the ball sails over his head, and the Panthers defender with his shoulder pad strikes him square in the front of the helmet, and then we see Olave collapse down to the ground motionless, unconscious at this moment. Very clear visual sign that we're concerned he's sustained a concussion at a minimum. I'm going to give props for how this was handled from what we saw on the field. We'll talk about the on-field evaluation, what exactly comes next here. But first, I want to give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's video. Today's video is sponsored by Bombas. Bombas is a comfort-focused premium basics brand that started in 2013 with a mission about helping others. 10 years later, they're making the most comfortable socks in the game. They've also helped to donate over 140 million clothing items to those in need, with one purchased equaling one donated. With cold weather and holidays upon us, it's sock season, and Bombas has introduced a whole new, fantastic, cozy lineup with also some great gifts. I picked up some taller, warmer socks for these winter months. They don't ride down on you. They have that same built-in nice arch support and are made with the most comfortable materials out there. Right now, new Bombas customers can get 20% off their purchase by going to bombas.com/BrianS and use my code BrianS to again get 20% off. If you're looking for some holiday gifts, Bombas also has you covered. I got this really nice toddler sock gift set that's holiday themed. I mean, these things are adorable, nice and fluffy. They've got little polar bears on them. We got the penguins on this design, and the little one just absolutely loves them. So take care of yourself this holiday season with a great deal on some fantastic socks, and also make somebody else's holiday if you're looking for a great gift. Thank you as always to Bombas for sponsoring this video. Again, new customers, 20% off, code BrianS, link down in the description. So this was a really great thing to see afterwards, because oftentimes in pro sports, when an athlete goes down, you see the teammates rush over, and just your instinct is you want to flip them over, you want to check and see if you're okay. And this position, when an athlete is down unconscious, number one, we have to be concerned about a neck injury. Even though the mechanism doesn't look like a cervical spine injury or a neck spinal cord injury, you have to assume that. And we see one of his teammates come over here and just kind of tap him on the shoulder, but nobody tries to flip him over. You can almost see it, his teammates a little bit hesitant to really do much to him. And props for recognizing that and not flipping him over and rolling him over. If you're an athlete, if you're in a situation like this and you see one of your players or teammates go down, resist the urge to roll them over or flip them over to check on them. I know you have good intentions. The challenge there is that if done incorrectly, let's say, for example, Olave had a fracture in his cervical spine and a bad spinal cord injury, if you try and unsafely move them or roll them, you run the risk that you can make that spinal cord injury worse. And so the medical staff that gets out here is trained with what to do. They're trained with how to evaluate him in this position. If you're an athlete, again, leave them alone. Appreciate you checking on them. Do not try to roll over your teammate. Let the medical staff get out there and appropriately and safely roll them over. So first thing that's happening here when this medical staff member gets out on the field, notice he does not try to roll Olave over. Same thing, because here we have to assume there's the possibility of a spinal cord injury. We can see in this position, this person who's at the head is technically kind of in charge here. We see another medical staff member come in, and you're trying to talk to him. You're trying to, number one, assess, are they conscious? Is this an unconscious downed athlete, or is this somebody who's conscious, alert, and talking to you that you need to progress through more of your neck evaluation rather than like a cardiac evaluation? Remember, we didn't see him get hit in the chest, but we also saw what happened with Damar Hamlin. And the first thing when you get out here in this situation, you've got to make sure that they have a pulse, because that's what's going to kill them more so than the possibility of a spinal cord injury. So the first thing we're doing, are they unconscious? If they're unconscious, you got to make sure that they've got a pulse, because a hit like this to the chest could absolutely cause like what we saw with Damar Hamlin. So first things first, is the athlete conscious? It looks like he's starting to move a little bit. So presumably they see that he's conscious. You therefore know things are going to be okay. check quick pulse. Heart's good, move on to the neurologic assessment. Now, eventually we see that they've rolled over Olave here, and we don't do that right away. Initially, when you get out there, you're going to do your best to stabilize that cervical spine, but you're going to wait for the rest of your medical team to get out there before you safely roll them over and away while you're protecting and stabilizing the neck. Now, in this position, when the athlete is supine or laying on their back, you're going to start going through more of your evaluation. Now, some of that you can do with them prone. You can press along the neck. You can check and see, do they have feeling in their limbs? Do they have motor control, strength in their limbs? At some point along the way, though, you have to be able to trust that the athlete is telling you the right information. And if there's concern about their level of consciousness, you can't trust that what they're telling you is believable if they have altered consciousness. And so in a situation like this, it's not so much that the mechanism concerned us for a neck injury as it is we can't confidently rule out a neck injury because of the altered consciousness and the concussion, that we assume there could be a neck injury, and that's why they're spine boarding here. So just seeing the spine board doesn't make me say, oh boy, they're worried he's definitely got a neck injury or could be paralyzed. It's more so the fact that if the athlete's unconscious, you can't trust their level of consciousness. You have to assume they might have a spine injury because they can't properly do the exam. Therefore, you get them on the backboard. By this time, they also have almost certainly taken off his face mask. So you have to always keep in mind the possibility that the heart, the airway, something else could be compromised during this whole evaluation sequence. And the big thing is going to be the airway. And if you've got a face mask on, you can't get to somebody's airway to help them breathe. So face mask, always coming off in these situations before we get them on the backboard because we want to make sure we have access to the airway if needed. And you can see that here now at this moment. We see that his face mask is off. They've got access to his airway if needed. They've got him secured on the backboard, cervical spine, nice and stable and secured. Now, one thing from watching this as he was coming off the field, we've seen athletes after a concussion have these post-traumatic, these impact seizures where their arms shake or they posture in these various positions. To me, it kind of looks like what might be going on here. We see the medical staff member who's actually kind of holding his hands still, and there'd really not be any reason to do that unless they were trying to limit any impact kind of seizure activity. Remember Donald Parham for the Chargers a number of years ago where the announcers made a comment like he was shivering. We saw him kind of shaking coming off the field. This triple flexed position where the elbow is flexed right here, the wrist is flexed, that's one of those posturing positions that we can see. And so I don't know if this is as much he was volitionally bringing his arms up as we could still be seeing some effects of that posturing, that post-impact tonic activity, potential seizure activity after such a severe brain injury. So everything going forward with Olave, number one, get him to the hospital, make sure they can safely and confidently clear and check his neck, cervical spine to make sure there's no fracture, no concern for a spinal cord injury. His concussion level, alertness, all that's probably going to come back slowly by the time he gets to the hospital where he can participate better in the exam, move his arms, move his legs, clear his neck in that fashion. And then it becomes all about the concussion. I know there's been comments about Olave considering wearing a Guardian cap. A Guardian cap was not going to prevent this from happening. They can, put as much data out there as you want, but you can't assume that a Guardian cap is going to prevent that. Would it have potentially reduced the amount of impact to the brain? Yeah, of course. But I don't think you can confidently say that taking a hit like that, a Guardian cap is going to 100% prevent that from happening. But I do think you have to start having those conversations about playing football going forward. Again, nobody knows an exact specific number of concussions to say, Chris, you're done. But from what we've seen, a second concussion this severe this season, I'd be surprised if we saw him back right away. It would not surprise me if we start seeing some discussions about potentially ending his career based on his position, high-risk position, honestly, compared to a quarterback like Tua, and the frequency of these concussions that he's suffered. But for now, hopefully everything checks out okay. Hopefully, again, no brain bleed, no internal trauma to the brain, and then you can worry about those football decisions later on. So that's it for the video, everybody. Thank you as always for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.